Well, let's stay with the story and get into this conversation now. Black Sash is criticizing SASSA for its handling of this review process. The organization's advocacy manager, Hoodah Abrahams-Fayker, joins us now from Cape Town. Huda, good evening to you and thank you for your time. Let's start with whether or not you believe that some SASSA beneficiaries are indeed committing fraud and corruption, as you've heard the representative of SASSA there, by not declaring their extra income.
Good evening, and thank you for asking Black Sash to join. First of all, the beneficiaries that receive grants need this lifeline to survive. So at no point would they be intentionally fraudulent or being corrupt. The challenge is that the narrative that SASSA is giving is imposing punitive measures on beneficiaries. So where beneficiaries are perhaps flagged for review, they must follow due process by notifying beneficiaries. So there may be a change in income, a change in circumstances, but it must follow a way of engaging with the social grant beneficiary. It's troubling that SASSA and National Treasury is hiding behind legislation to impose these review mechanisms. But at the same time, there's also a constitutional obligation, and they cannot hide behind fiscal accountability because financial support from the state is important if beneficiaries can't support themselves.
Let me ask the question differently, Huda. Are SASSA beneficiaries allowed to earn an income whilst at the same time collecting a grant?
Well, whether the question of earn, it's usually, if you're looking at the old age grants, they're pensionable age. There is no permanent grants for unemployed between 18 and 59. It is means tested, so you are allowed certain income and you can still qualify for a social grant. So it's not zero rated, so beneficiaries are able to have certain assets and are able to have some kind of income, not necessarily in terms of salary, but it will then be weighed and looked at in terms of a sliding scale, and not necessarily that they will no longer receive a grant.
If you listened to the SASSA CEO today, he was emphatic that no grants have been suspended during this review process. Do you agree with him?
It's a matter of semantics, because the question whether it's a review, whether it's a suspension, at the end of the day, the social grant beneficiary is expecting a grant to be paid on a certain day. And those grants are not being paid, it is being delayed. And there's no certainty of when they will receive the grant. So in terms of the SASSA CEO saying that they've sent bulk SMSs, which they themselves admit do not necessarily get received by social grant beneficiaries because of the change of cell phones, perhaps even not having data interconnectivity to receive those grants, because you're looking at grant beneficiaries, especially in rural areas, and also expecting that notification is considered to be accepted as notification through a a communication strategy. There's no confirmation that that social grant beneficiary has indeed been notified that they are under review.
Your organization, Black Sash, says that it has community monitoring teams, including your national helpline. Now, based on your media statement, you say these teams, including your helpline, have been overwhelmed by distress calls. What is the nature of these distress calls? What are they saying?
Beneficiaries are panicking. They are not receiving notification. They are then just not receiving their grants. And so then have to use time and money to get to a SASSA office. When they get to the SASSA office, bearing in mind that we have a national footprint, so we have colleagues throughout the country having monitored to see what the impact is of this review processes, working together with community-based organizations. The challenge is that SASSA, the staff themselves, are not even fully appraised of what this review process entails. And that's the one issue. And there are long queues, so sometimes beneficiaries are not assisted and they are not knowing what they are supposed to provide. So when they get to SASSA, they said you need to bring 3 months bank statements, you need to bring an ID of your spouse, etc. So that means they have to make a second trip to bring through that information.
SASSA says it has a legal obligation to ensure integrity in their systems. Do you at least concur with them saying that they need to clean up the system? And if not, what do you believe they didn't address today in their media briefing? What is at the heart of what they need to address?
No, definitely we do concur, and we want the beneficiary who is entitled to receive the grant, who's eligible to receive the grant, to receive that grant. But if there is a concern that a beneficiary is receiving a grant who is not supposed to receive the grant, the communication strategy must be timeous. It must have structures in place to ensure that the beneficiary is able to consider and be able to plead their case, so to say, if that is an issue. But the way in terms of imposing this review without beneficiaries being fully informed of what that entails, not understanding what the information is, and also knowing that the SASSA footprint is not as wide and accessible, especially to beneficiaries in rural areas, they need to make sure that where they roll out a process, that they have support to ensure that beneficiaries can do it in a timeous way and at no cost to the beneficiary.
As we end the conversation, you're calling on SASSA to pause further review processes. Until when? What is the strategy here?
Well, we understand SASSA's obligations. And so in terms of pausing, it's about what is the impact on the ground. It's causing panic. Grants are being delayed without beneficiaries knowing why, and they're not having the time to be able to come forward. So ideally, there must be a public consultation process. They can reach out to community organizations and civil societies to support them to ensure that until beneficiaries are notified and then given the benefit of the doubt to first pay the grant, and while they're paying the grant, ask the beneficiary to come forward with the additional information if they so think that there's a cause for concern.
Huda Abrahams-Fayker, thank you very much for your time. She is the organization's advocacy manager. That organization is Black Sash.